Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is the News Brief. And today we're going to be talking about all of the absolute craziness that's been going on in the world because of Russia. And of course, we're going to discuss it together in the comments so you don't have to suffer alone and I don't have to suffer alone. So please, don't hesitate and leave all of your thoughts down below. Let's go. Well, let's start with the fact that this Saturday I was traveling from Berlin to Warsaw and then back home. And this Saturday there happened to be a massive cyber attack on Berlin airport coming from Russia. All of our flights were delayed, the gates kept changing. At the time, we did not know it was Russia's cyber attack, but we were delayed coming to Warsaw for about 2 hours. I consider us lucky because the next day, the airport was shut down. It was a complete nightmare. Everything seemed to be changing in the board of arrivals and departures. As I said, gates were changing. It was complete chaos. Now, fast forward this week, Russia's drones, presumably unidentified UAVs, were in the airspace of Norway and Denmark. The Copenhagen airport also experienced a cyber attack, and there has just been a caucus of Russian intrusion into European nations. Earlier last week, we had Russian drones coming into Poland, then we had a drone coming into Romania, and then we had Russian jets in Estonian airspace. If you are not getting it yet, then here is my announcement to you. All of these are escalations, and if you think it's a temporary fluke and Russia's going to get the message and stop doing it, then I hate to break it to you. Because Russia is getting a message, and the message is, well, there's not really much that the EU is going to do about it. There is not really much that NATO is going to do about it. So Russia has all the green flags to continue escalating, continue testing our patience, our response, and seeing what they can get away with. Now, there was an interesting change that everyone is discussing, and that is Donald Trump's rhetoric about Ukraine. And I have a lot to say about it. I think a lot of people are getting distracted by this messaging, and a lot of people are buying it. A lot of people are falling for it. A lot of people are very kind of like excited because this is a 180 flip. I'm here to also tell you that I have zero expectations from this messaging, and I believe this messaging about 0% because I think that all of this is not a cover-up, but a distraction from the ongoing Epstein Files situation in the US. Now, here's what the message reads. First of all, I want to comment that this is not Donald Trump's communication style, especially his writing style, because normally when he writes messages on his social media, they kind of sound like verbal diarrhea with lots of caps lock and hey, this is not to criticize Donald Trump. This is just to say that his writing style usually includes a lot of caps lock. It includes a lot of just like incomplete sentences. He writes how he speaks. He doesn't really follow writing guidelines and rules. This is a very well-written piece. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular, NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all of the great cities, towns, and districts all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war, the fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines that are being formed, and all of the other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of their money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better. Ukraine would be able to take their country back in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that. Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with them. Good luck to all. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. Now, here is where I'm coming from with this. First of all, there's so much punctuation used there. It's just not. I mean, someone wrote this for him, and he posted it. This is definitely deliberately to deflect attention from his own domestic problems and his own domestic issues, which he's very well known to do. It's like political smoke screens, right? But we are the ones who are suffering from it. Donald Trump also said that if Russian jets or Russian aviation of any kind takes to the European or NATO countries' airspace, NATO should just shoot it down without thinking. And that was a huge thing for him to say, except about a little bit later, when he was asked about it again, if he would support if the allies did that, he said he doesn't know. So that's the thing. None of these words are really reliable, and they shouldn't be taken at face value, and no one should be betting everything on what Donald Trump says. His rhetoric changes every 5 minutes, and while this is very, very different from what he normally says, and there is a lot less ambiguity in what he says, I would still not take it as anything other than just words and just political smokescreens. Because in reality, when it comes to actions, what we end up hearing is 2-3 weeks and we'll find out. And then it's 2-3 weeks and 2-3 weeks, and no real action is ever being taken. So again, political smokescreen, no more, no less. Meanwhile, Europe and the United States are experiencing military production issues because they're just simply not adjusted to modern realities. They're not adjusted to, keeping a huge stockpile for your own defense and for potential future conflicts, and also fighting a conflict that is happening currently. While I would say that with the United States, the US has huge stockpiles of weapons that are old and that could be brought back to a usable format and could be used to actually make a very huge difference in Ukraine, when it comes to producing new technology, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to all of that, no one's really prepared because their factories are just not adapted to producing as much military supplies as the current reality calls for. Ukraine, however, is trying to not fix that situation, but add solutions to this situation by creating military partnerships between Ukraine and allied countries to produce military tech, such as UAVs. Ukraine is one of the leading designers in UAVs these days because, well, hey, we live in a reality that forces us to innovate, that forces us to find cheap solutions, that forces us to find fast solutions. So one of the biggest issues, as I said, is that factories are not adapted and time frames are too tight. So these UAVs that Ukraine has designed, produced, and tested could be a very good solution for feeling a lot more secure in case of an invasion for a lot of NATO and allied countries, because they're cheap, they're fast to produce, you can produce them in large numbers, you can produce them for not a lot of money, and you can have a lot of them in order to overwhelm your, invader or overwhelm your opponent if such emerges. So we all know that drones are the future of warfare, and Ukraine is really banking on that future, and Ukraine is really investing into that future. Ukraine has been innovating amazingly in terms of Ukraine's drones. There is a new one called Leleka. Well, it's not new, but it's updated, and now it has a lot larger range, and it also has a much more stabilized camera. And again, this is part of Ukraine's UAV models that are UAV model ranges that are cheap, easy, fast to produce, that could be very, very useful for not just Ukraine, but also for other nations that Ukraine cooperates with to not only fight wars, but have something up our sleeves and their sleeves for defense. Basically, the idea here is that Ukraine is the guarantor of European security and safety. Europe is lacking missiles, Europe is lacking UAVs, and Europe is lacking engines and the production of all of that. And we are trying to fix that issue fast, cheap, and efficiently, while we are also fighting a war for survival on the battlefield. Imagine the possibilities and opportunities and the horizons that Ukraine could open for the world of defense had we not, if we were not in the situation in which we are right now, and we didn't have to worry about dying as we are at it, and our production wasn't ruined as we are at it, and our factories weren't blown up as we were at it. Our innovators weren't killed in their sleep while we were at it. It would all be moving much faster, and it would be a lot easier to create these new realities. I think one of the people that did the absolute most justice to describing the current climate of the world with Russia and how Russia behaves is Sikorski, Polish foreign minister and also deputy prime minister, at the UN meeting by addressing Russia and Russia's representatives and calling them out on the threat that they pose to the world. And I think that Russia doesn't take Poland seriously, so I wish that someone from the big and heavy and countries of the EU that matter said that. But since they didn't, I really hope that they listen to it and believe in it. And I also really hope that you listen to it and you believe in it, because he is right and he's saying things as they are, and it's time to act now, and it's time to bet on Ukraine now.
Mr. President, Excellencies, this Emergency Security Council meeting has been called because a mere week after Russia sent drones into Poland, 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets with their transponders off entered Estonian airspace without authorization and lingered for 12 minutes. On the same day, 2 Russian fighter jets violated the security zone over the Polish drilling platform in our economic zone in the Baltic Sea. If these were accidents, why not immediately acknowledge them and apologize? We have given Russia a pass in the past in such circumstances. But we have not heard any apologies, only lies. Together with the intensification of attacks on Ukraine, they seem to be an eloquent comment on, quote, moving from confrontation to dialogue, end quote, promised by Vladimir Putin in Alaska. These breaches of airspace are suspect because they are an escalation of hybrid war which Russia has waged against the West for years. Murders of politicians, journalists, human rights defenders and defectors, cyberattacks against hospitals and financial institutions, arsons, including in Poland, UK and Lithuania, postal packages containing incendiary devices all over Europe, including Germany, attacks on Ukrainian embassies, in addition to standard espionage and disinformation. Excellencies, this Council has a responsibility to send a clear message that such provocations will not be tolerated. It must stand in solidarity with Estonia, Romania, Poland, and all nations whose sovereignty is threatened by systemic Russian aggression. To the representatives of Russia, I have this to say. We know you don't care for international law and you are incapable of living in peace with your neighbors. Your insane nationalism contains a lust for domination that will not cease until you realize that the age of empires is over and that your empire will not be rebuilt. Every drone strike by the heroes of the armed forces of Ukraine, may God bless them, brings this day closer. Your 3-day special military operation can't even conquer Donbass for 10 years now. But the potential for criminal, catastrophic Russian mistakes is still there. By ordering mobilization in 1914, you precipitated the start of World War I, which bled Europe white and led to your Bolshevik Revolution. By signing the Hitler-Stalin Pact, you helped launch World War II, the bloodiest in history. By Sovietizing Central Europe, you caused the Cold War. Don't start another one. We are peaceful democracies who have studiously avoided actively joining your attempt to reconquer Ukraine. But we will not be intimidated. I have only one request to the Russian government. If another missile or aircraft enters our space without permission, deliberately or by mistake, and gets shot down and the wreckage falls on NATO territory, please don't come here to whine about it. You have been warned. Thank you.
Now, that's all I have for you for today, and I hope that you enjoyed this brief. If you have, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, turn on all of your notifications, send this video to a friend, give it a like, and, of course, leave me your questions, suggestions, thoughts, constructive criticism, anything you would like to put in the comments down below. See you next time.